everybody. Today we're going to do some heart rate recovery activities. So I'm going to put you through a couple sample tests so you can experiment with the process, and then I would suggest using this idea, if you are training or you start training for sports or activities or events or just to improve your own fitness. This might be a good way to monitor your progress. So heart rate recovery refers to how quickly your heart rate returns back to normal after doing exercise. So that's the recovery piece of it. What we're going to use, and if you have a worksheet, you have all the information you need anyway, but what we're going to use is a chart that looks like this. Okay, so you can see on the chart that there's three columns. There's a column for heart rate after 15 seconds. There's a column for heart rate in your beats per minute. And then there's a third column where you take that beats per minute and you subtract from your resting heart rate, or you subtract your resting heart rate from it to find how close you are to that resting heart rate. And you'll also notice we'll do this 5 different times over the course of about 2.5 minutes. And what we'll find out is we'll see that far third column, we'll see the number go down as your heart rate drops, as it gets closer to your resting heart rate. Okay. Our job here, before we do anything, is we want to get your resting heart rate. Okay, so we're going to use the same process here that we'll use when we do the tests, okay, the 3 different tests. Or this could also be the process you use when you're testing your own fitness level from your own training. Okay, so if you don't have a worksheet to use, find a place to write this down. You're going to want this written down because you're going to want to use this as a baseline. So finding your pulse. So there's a couple main ways people will do this. They'll either use their carotid artery, which is in your neck. There's one on each side of your throat here, and you can find it in that little indent, the little groove there. Generally, you'll use these 2 fingers to find it and be able to feel it and then count it. Okay. Another way that people will find their pulse is in the radial artery, which is right here on the wrist. It's on the thumb side of the wrist, kind of at the top, or thumb side of the wrist here. You don't want to push too hard, but just putting your fingers there and stopping for a second, you should be able to feel your pulse. Okay. Blood comes out of your heart and to your body through your arteries, returns back to your heart through the veins. So we're checking our pulse on our arteries here. What we're going to do is we're going to count that pulse for 15 seconds, and then we're going to take that number, we're going to multiply it by 4 to get a rate per minute. Okay, so before we do anything else, let's find our resting heart rate. Now remember, if you've been doing stuff the last 5 or 10 minutes, some working out or running around, don't do this right now. You want to rest for about 5 to 10 minutes before doing this. So pause it, come back to it if you have to. Otherwise, wherever you'd like, find your pulse. Okay, find it now, and I'm going to time us for 15 seconds. So find it. When I say go, start counting, and then I'll stop you at that 15 seconds. Okay, ready, set, go. Stop. Hey, write that number down. That was your resting heart rate in 15 seconds. So write that number down, but then take that number and multiply it by 4 to get your resting heart rates in beat per minute. Okay. We'll use that to fill out our form. Okay, now this is an intro video, but we're also going to talk about how to fill out the form as well. Okay, and what the tests are going to be like. So the test videos will be really short. They'll just be about the tests. If you need to come back for directions or just to review this information, come on back to this video and find what you need. So I showed you the chart that we're going to use. Okay, let's before we get back to that, let's talk about the step tests we're going to use. So you'll need a step for this. I have a couple back here that I'm going to use. I'm actually going to use this one. It's a little higher up, which is fine. You just want to use the same step every time. You can use a step in a stairwell. You can use a step, outside on the porch, on the deck, a step up to get into your building, whatever the case may be. But you'll need a step, and I'm going to use this the whole time. This is a little quieter when I step on it than that is. But you'll need something here. And then this is how the tests are going to work. So I'm going to play a cadence, and it's going to be different intensity levels. Test 1's going to be the slowest. Test 3 will be the highest, and I'll show you just now what test 1 is like. So you'll hear that cadence, and every time you hear that, you should be taking a step. Okay, so here's how the step test works. So if I'm going to use this as my step, I'm going to go up, up, down, down, and I'm going to follow the rhythm of that cadence. Okay, just like that. And if I need to switch legs, that's okay. So if I go like this, and come down on the other leg, totally fine. Just going up, up, down, down. Okay, and they'll get the different tests, like I said, they'll get harder. They'll get a little more intense. That'll just be the first one. It'll be a basic, kind of an easy one. Between each test, you should also take a rest. You should take a rest, like a 5 or 10 minute rest. You want to get your heart rate back down to that resting heart rate level so your tests are more accurate that way. Okay. All right, let's get into filling out the form. So this, you might have to come back and reference this. So here's that form again. Right after the step test, you're going to want to sit down somewhere. So I'm going to sit on the floor just like this. I'll do my step test here, and then I'll sit right down. And the first thing I'm going to do is find my pulse. Whether I want to do it here or here, it doesn't matter. But the first thing I'm going to do is find my pulse. Okay, and then I will, on the video, I'll time you. And I'll tell you when to start counting, when to stop counting, and when to write things down. Okay, so let's pretend we just did this test. It's only going to be a minute-long test. So we're going to step up and down for a minute. That's it. And we're going to sit down and find our pulse. Okay, so after that minute's done, I sit down, I find my pulse, and then I'll tell you start, stop, and then I'm going to write down that number on my chart. So right away, I'm going to do it for 15 seconds, and right away, I'm going to put that number right here on the chart. Okay, then you'll see I'm going to wait about 15 seconds. That'll give me time to write it down, but then I want to find my pulse again right away. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you to start counting again. So after, at that 30 seconds after we're done with the test, I'm going to tell you to start counting again. You're going to count it for 15 more seconds. Then I'm going to tell you to stop. And now we're going to write that number in this spot on your chart. Okay. We're going to do that again. 15 seconds later, we're going to do it again from a minute to a minute 15. We're going to write that number here. We're going to do it again from 1:30 to 1:45. And we're going to write that number here. And then we're going to do it one last time from 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 15 seconds after our test. And we're going to write that number here. Okay, so at this point, you have the whole first column filled out. Okay, that was the heart rate you did right after exercising in those intervals. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that number, since we only did it for 15 seconds, we're going to take that number and we're going to turn it into a heart rate per minute. So we're going to take that number to fill out the second column. You can see right here, we're going to take that number from the first column and we're going to multiply it times 4. Okay. We're going to do that again for all 5 of our trials there, of our interval times. Okay. Once we do that for all 5 of those, we're going to have a heart rate beats per minute. This is for after we did our exercise. After that's done, then we're going to fill in the last part. Okay, the last part, we need that beats per minute from exercise that we just got in the middle column, but now we're going to subtract our resting heart rate from it. Okay, when we subtract our resting heart rate from that number, it leaves us with the gap. It leaves us with how far away from our resting heart rate we are. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to have a higher number right away, and that number should get smaller and smaller as we go down because our heart rate is recovering from exercise. And that's what heart rate recovery is. Okay, so we're going to see that rate go down. Now, like I said, this is a great thing to use. Besides these 3 tests, these are good experiments for them, but this is a great thing to use if you are training. Okay, if you are doing, running, say you're running every day. This would be a really good thing to do one day after running. You just do this. You sit down, you get home, you sit down, you do your heart rate in these intervals, and you see how quickly your heart rate is recovering in that far column. Then, as you continue training, maybe a month later, do it again. Okay? And look for improvement. Okay? That's what we'd be looking for here, and that's why you're training, so your body adapts to that training. Okay, so in the future, you would do this again. You would look to improve that recovery time that you had from a month before. Okay, just to show that your training is paying off and your body is adapting to it. Okay, now the next videos are just going to be test videos. Okay, so maybe a quick intro and then right to the tests. Everything you need to know, and I'll tell you when to start and stop your pulse. I'll tell you where to write it down, but as far as filling out the rest of the document and all the other directions, you may have to come back to this video for that stuff. But enjoy the 3 tests, 3 different intensity levels, and this is a great little practice activity for you to learn a little more about some training principles and how heart rate recovery can help you understand whether your training is paying off or not. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a good day.